Good morning. Welcome to your new home for Football Talk in the Morning. It's day 3 of ITL's Takeover of the State of Football. It's July 28th, 2021, episode 257. Good morning, Bo. How are you today, sir?
Good morning, Neil. Day 3, so we're halfway through the week, and as we've been saying all week, another great show lined up, and I'm excited to talk to Murphy. I was there when you brought him along and seeing his growth, but we'll get to that later. But nonetheless, very appreciative to be partaking in this week's State of the Football episodes.
Well, it's good to have you, man. Yeah, so far so good. I don't want to count our chickens yet. We have started the show. We haven't finished the show. I know Bo's I know Rick is watching. He's got his finger on the button at all times. So nothing is proven until we actually get through the show. We don't want him to have to get a big hook and kind of drag us off here. All right, so today we will have Murphy McGuire of Octagon Football. We've got Randy Mueller, former NFL executive, and we have Jason Montanez with Catapult Leadership. We're going to have a great show. Going to have a lot to talk about. Bo, how's your morning going so far?
It's going good. It's good, just getting ready to doing some prep, and then thinking about the rest of the day. And I know we're going to talk about running, so I'll definitely get my run in later today. But other than that, basically quiet and normal, which I like.
How many days in a row, Bo, have you run at least 3 miles?
As of now, it's I just looked the other day because you just asked me what we went live. It's like 8,607, 606. So right around there, and it averages like 23 point so many years. 24 straight years will be in January if I make it that far. So.
And your first day was when?
January 4th, 1998.
Wow, amazing. And you have drawn sponsorship from whom?
I get stuff from ASICS. They take care of me. They give me free shoes and shorts and all that fun stuff. So it's Neil, there's nothing funner than free stuff. So that's always a fun thing.
Hey man, I'm all about the free stuff. That's for sure. I remember, so many times. As some of you know, Bo and I kind of traveled together during the All-Star season, and so many times Bo has gone and he's run between practices. He's run late at night. He's run early in the morning. Typically, when I'm getting up, he's coming back in from having run. He runs in freezing cold weather where he lives. He runs on the beach sometimes. Especially when we're at St. Pete for the Shrine game. It's amazing. It is amazing, and I will testify to Bo's persistence. He has not cheated, not one time, not while we've been together at least. It's amazing, and he's known for it. Everyone in the All-Star, all the scouts, the agents, everyone that knows Bo, kind of wants to talk to him about it because what a streak. He's been running longer than inside the league has been around. By 3 years, I think. You started in '96. You said 4 years, 6 years. Early math. I'm not doing so well. Yeah, it's amazing. What a streak.
Yeah, the funny part is one of the craziest days I ever had was the first year I ever attended the Senior Bowl. I've never been to Mobile, Alabama. I didn't know anything about where to go, where to be, but I rented a car. I drove in from New Orleans. I rented a car. I get downtown Mobile. It's like 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, and I still haven't ran yet. I had to get my run in. So I remember I parked off some little side street, and I just start running downtown Mobile, and I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know who was who. And ironically, that's when I met you. I remember meeting you in the media center, and I'm like, I remember Rick, because I was like, oh my God, this is Neil Stratton from ITL. And Rick was excited. I was excited. I'm like, man, the living legend. I'm sitting next to him. We're eating ice creams.
Yeah, I know. Hey, who can forget all that free ice cream we used to get at the Senior Bowl, man? That was awesome. They got to start that back. They're really lagging. It's nice having all the free Reese's. Don't get me wrong, but if they could work that into some ice cream, that would be even so much better. I got to talk to Nagy about that. Oh my gosh, man! We're going down through the years this time, man. We've got all the old pictures. I forgot that I sent all these to Sam. She's got lots of ammo on us now, Bo.
Yeah. We need to get the twins photo of us in the blue suit coats and white shirts, and literally it looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito and twins. You got the short guy and the tall guy together.
It's around here somewhere, man. Again, I think there may be some people holding it for ransom on me. They may have some money, try to get some money from both of us. Little they know they've got no money. We have no money. All right, so we're 8 days away from the 2021 agent exam. We got a great lineup of guests. Let's get rolling and get right into it. Sam, take it away. Do we have our video?
You can't become an agent without passing the exam. We can help. We introduced our first practice test in 2012. Since then, we've added a study guide and a second exam, and we've helped hundreds pass a test that 55% fail. Our clients succeed at a rate 25% higher than others. For the cost of a plane ticket, you can buy our guide and take both our exams multiple times. Check us out.
All right, let's get rolling. Bo, who's our first guest?
Well, our first guest today is Murphy McGuire. After spending 2 years as Neil's assistant for ITL, Murphy McGuire got certified in 2015 against Neil's advice. But since then, Murphy has truly risen and has done a remarkable job in the industry. He was the only rookie Asian to have a player drafted in 2016. In less than 6 years, he's gone from an independent agent to become a key member of a major firm, Octagon Football, one of the top places you can go. As of last week, Murphy was tied among 51 active advisors with 20 active NFL clients, and truly a remarkable job by Murphy, and appreciate him coming on. And Murphy, well done, man. You really have knocked this thing out of the ballpark, my friend.
I appreciate it, fellas. How's everybody doing this morning? It's good to see everybody. Some familiar faces.
Yeah.
I think if there's a third member of the ITL traveling crew, Murphy probably will be one of them for sure. He certainly has been around for quite a while and made quite an impression in the short time he's been certified. Good morning, man. My man, how you doing today?
Everything's good. Everything's good. Life is well, and I appreciate you asking, and excited to be on here.
First of all, Murphy, congratulations on being another person that was wise enough to not listen to my advice. It's been it's been an incredible rise in a short time. So let's talk about NIL. I guess everyone else is talking about it in the industry right now. It's obviously been a very hot topic ever since the first day it was launched in July 1st. What's Octagon's strategy regarding NIL, and kind of how are y'all approaching that?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's the big, talk that everybody can't seem to stop talking about, and rightfully so. We knew that this was something that was going to come down the pipe. I mean, it's not like it was something that we had been prepared for from a college perspective. So we kind of knew going in, hey, this is something we've got to have a strategy for going forward, because we don't want to, get to the end and then it kind of just creep up on us. We were never going to have that happen. So I think from a macro perspective, the overall strategy from how we're looking at it is, look, if the right guy presents himself, obviously it's something that we're going to be interested in. I think some agencies have taken a conservative approach, which is fine. I think other agencies have obviously been a little bit more aggressive, which is also fine. But I think we're obviously open to it if, again, the right opportunity presents itself. It just has to make sense for us from a long-term perspective. Again, we don't want to get into it just to get into it. If we're going to get into it, it's got to make sense for us. Like I said, not only obviously from a short-term perspective, but potentially more importantly from a long-term perspective. So I think that's kind of the overall, like I said, 35,000 feet up perspective as far as how we're approaching it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that all makes sense. All right, so how do you see NIL affecting the agent business? Do you see it leveling the playing field, or do you think it just makes the rich richer and the poor poorer?
Well, I mean, I think, again, it's a very bland answer, but I'm going to give it to you. You've heard me say this before, probably with a lot of things. I think it kind of depends. Every situation is going to be different. Every player is going to approach this differently. I think, big agencies in theory could have more of an advantage just because they have more resources. But I don't think practically that necessarily is going to end up how it plays out. I do still think we're going to see parity in this landscape. So, like I said, I know it's kind of a boring, bland answer, but I think it's just going to kind of depend on the situation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Nice. Switching gears a little bit, Murphy, from the NIL thing that's a very popular subject to another thing that's affecting the world as we speak is, did any of your clients ask or seek your advice on whether or not they should get the vaccine? And if so, what did you tell them?
Sure. Hey, Bo, the hair looks great, by the way. I like the yeah, it looks good. So I talked with most of my guys already kind of planned going in. I talked to a couple of them kind of late spring, early summer about it. I'm never going to tell a young man to, do something. They're going to make their own decisions. We kind of understood that this was obviously this has been a big deal. This has overtaken the world here since the beginning of last year. And so having the opportunity to take this, get this vaccine for these guys was great. It was fantastic, and so it made it easier for them too, knowing, hey, if I get this, in theory, I'm not going to really have to worry about anything from the testing perspective, just from the day-to-day operational perspective. So again, I didn't tell anybody, hey, you have to get the vaccine. What I did tell them was, if you get the vaccine, it's going to make life on you a lot easier. And so it made it easier for them to say, okay, well, that makes sense. Let's go ahead and take care of business. So, so I know it's been a little bit of a bit, it's been a huge talking point. It's probably an understatement, but we've had conversations about it, and each guy's kind of made their own decision that they felt was best for them.
Fair enough. Okay, so Murphy, there are a lot of budding agents that are watching today. A lot of people that are taking the exam next month in 9 short days. What's the hardest part of recruiting these days? And are the parents or the players themselves harder to deal with?
It's a great question. I think what's made the recruiting business, I think, different now and potentially more difficult is the NIL stuff. And what I mean by that is you kind of understand going in, that you're probably, when you're doing it from an NIL perspective too, you're probably saying, hey, you know what, it made it kind of made a hard business even harder, from the sense of you might have to hold on to these young men for more than a year. This might be a 2 or 3 year process. When from a marketing perspective, of course, you're trying to hang on to these kids, build a relationship. I think that's made, like I said, a hard business potentially even harder. Now, let me from the outset say this. I'm glad that these young men are getting a chance to make money off their name, image, and likeness. It's a long time coming. This is something that should have been done, 2-3 decades ago. But nevertheless, from our perspective, specifically from an agent perspective, I think just understanding that the business is going to continue to evolve. This has always been, Neil, this since the time that you and I were together. This is an adapt or die business. There's always something happening. You feel like every couple of years, a new trend, something kind of evolving, where if you aren't getting with the times, then you're probably going to get left behind. That's just the reality of it. This is the new trend. This is something that we've got to be, and that we've been, at least from our perspective, we've been prepared for. So I think that's probably the best way to answer that question, at least now. Parents or players, again, bland answer. It just depends. I mean, some players are a little bit more difficult to deal with than parents. And sometimes you got parents who are just, they want to be involved with every little intricate detail, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But, it can potentially make things a little bit tougher from time to time, just depending upon, what the situation entails. But again, it's, you handle it the way you handle it, and, take care of business, and everything works out in the end.
No doubt.
And I'm sure it has to be a crazy time, especially with this whole new dynamic, and
with
both the players and the parents involved. You agents, and like Neil told you, don't do it, but you did, but you're doing it resoundingly successfully. I mean, nobody can argue the results, Murphy. But how about this one? I mean, the agent exam is next week, 8 days away. What advice do you give to the listeners who are going to partake in this exam and want to achieve what you've already done, and that's saying that you got your license and you can do this?
Yeah, we did not in 2015 when I took the exam. We were not aware that they were like changing the format and doing things differently. I remember, I had Neil's study guide, which was fantastic. But I also, in addition to that, was able to, I've done this. I did this in high school. I did this in undergrad. I did this in law school. I would write out everything. I mean, everything. Even we had the slides, but I still wrote them out, and I just committed it to memory. And I'm one of those people that even though I know if I'm going into something and I'm like, even if it's like open book, which this is, or it was, it still is right now. I mean, it was in 2015. I'm still kind of like, okay, I'm still not going to take it for granted. I'm still going to make sure I'm doing everything that I need to do. So, I wrote everything down and just hammered it out. And when I went in there, I was like, yeah, this is a little more difficult than they said it was going to be. Little did we know that they had already changed the format for that year. And our pass rate was like, wasn't that like the lowest year it's ever been, Neil, because nobody knew it was coming. I mean, it was like 40% or something. It was just something crazy. Yeah. But, on a scale of 1 to 10 of difficulty, it was, I don't know, it was probably like a 5 or something, 5 or 6. But, I didn't take it for granted, though. I actually went in there and studied and had studied a little bit before, so going in, I wasn't, kind of caught off guard. But, just preparation is key. Having valuable resources is key. I'm talking to one right now, so I know that's a shameless plug, but it's the truth. It's just the way it is. So, like I said, just understanding going in that you don't need to go in there 5 minutes before and say, okay, let me look at the materials here and not really know what's going on. Actually maybe have a plan going in.
Excellent.
Murphy, we got about 60 seconds left. I want to part on a really positive note for all the agents that are out there, agent hopefuls that are watching. Tell us the draft day story for Jakeem. You're a rookie agent. Jakeem kind of rolled the dice on you. He had not gone to the combine. So much of a kind of an out of nowhere story. Can you give us that, just a kind of a brief capsule summary of that day?
Yeah, no, it was, that whole process was just wild. I always tell people my first draft process was, one of the best I've ever had, because everything that could go right kind of did go right, and that never ever happens. We went to the College Gridiron Showcase, balled out there, was the best player there. Didn't get a chance to go to the combine, which was obviously disappointing, but went to the pro day and just was absurd. Ran a hand time, we had it as low as like a 4.1, 4.12. You remember that. It was just lunacy, but just really tested through the roof. Did well in his private workouts. He had a handful of 30 visits. Just everything really went the way it was supposed to. And then when we get to the draft, the expectations were we were going on day 3, but you just never know with day 3 guys. Not to mention Jakeem's 5'5" without cleats on. He's the smallest guy in the NFL. He might be the fastest guy in the NFL. So he kind of was like, okay, balancing test. How's it going to work out? So anyway, I remember being on the phone with a team there at the beginning of the 6th round. I won't mention the team, and being on the phone with their GM and their college scouting director, and they were both on the phone, basically giving me the PFA pitch. I'm with a couple of friends I'm watching the draft with, that I still will watch day 3 with from time to time. But, obviously when I'm locked in working, and one of them runs up to me because I'm off in the corner, just talking. And one of them runs up to me, goes, Jakeem just got drafted by the Dolphins. It started like bear hugging me. And I'm on the phone and I go like, I start cussing because I'm so excited. And it was awful, but I was like, oh my gosh, a couple F-bombs there while I'm on the phone with a freaking GM. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I ended up calling them back like 10 minutes later and apologizing. I'm like, guys, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that. And they were like, Murph, you're good. It's a joyous occasion. You're not the first one to ever do that. So, but it was a wonderful moment, and Jakeem's obviously was able to get a nice second contract. He's going to year 6 there in Miami. So life has been good for Mr. Grant. It's been a it's been a heck of a ride with me and Jakeem.
It's amazing. I mean, it's it's just like you said, Murphy. Very rarely do you have that kind of process. I mean, all credit to you and to Jakeem, of course, for putting the work in. But man, what a first year! You can watch. As a matter of fact, if you're interested, you can find it out there. The story kind of that draft is, was it called Late Rounders? Is it NFL?
That was the thing. So that was the other quick point of that was in late January, NFL Network had called and the TV show Undrafted called. And we were like, okay, I asked him, I was like, you want to do it? He was like, yeah, let's do it. I'm good with it. And he was the first and I think only player that was ever actually drafted on the show Undrafted. So, yeah, kind of cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Murphy, thanks so much, brother. We appreciate you being on the show. Best of luck in this crazy landscape and everything that's going on right now. I know it's going to work out great for you because I know how hard you work, man. I've seen it myself. Appreciate you being
seeing you, Murph. You stay safe, man.
I appreciate it, fellas. Y'all take care. Thanks, guys.
Too. Excellent.
All right. Bo, who we got next, buddy?
Well, you know what? I'm gonna do the intro, but I'm gonna actually ask you, who do we have next? I just want to hear you say it.
Randy Mueller, man, is a long-time friend of ITL and also a former Who Dat himself as well.
Yeah, Randy Mueller. Think about this, folks. Next guest.
We lose Bo? All right. I think we are having some technical difficulties, so I'm just going to take it away with the introduction here. Randy is not only a three-time NFL GM and a former NFL Executive of the Year. I think that was in 2000. But he remains a respected voice in NFL circles due to his consulting service and his excellent blog that you can find at MuellerFootball.com. Let me tell you, if you're not reading Randy's blog, you're missing out. If you care about a show like this, if you care about the issues that we discussed and everything that goes into NFL decision-making, you got to read Randy's column. That's my quick plug there. Randy's also kind enough to join us in discussing the 2017 NFL Draft as part of ITL's podcast series, The Best Player Available. Randy, thanks so much for getting up early with us this morning, buddy.
Hey, Neil, good to be with you, man. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're having a good summer.
No complaints so far, man. It's a little warm down here in Houston, but hey, that's Houston, right? You don't. Right. That's baked into it. No pun intended. All right, so Randy, if you were a GM today, how would you approach the vaccination issue? I mean, it's one of the hotter topics out there. And what we're all looking for as fans of the NFL, is there a middle ground? Is there a way for both sides to kind of feel like their opinions are being respected?
Yeah, I think that's society, right? I mean, not only is it the NFL, it's society. It's everybody needs to be heard, and this is an extension of that. It's been kind of crazy when you monitor the league landscape as to how this vaccination thing has gone, because just what we need, right? Something else to divide our locker room, something else to divide our team building. I feel for these GMs right now because they're having to deal with all of that. Not only are you normally dealing with contract issues and building your team right now, but now you've got this sidebar. I think really the middle ground is that most of these teams have brought in experts. They brought in people to inform their players. And it's really got to be an independent contractor that does that so that everybody's on the same page and understanding the agendas at stake. I just think there's so much at stake, not only at the NFL level for the league with all the money that's involved, but for these teams who we've spent hours and days and months and years building, that could go south with one negative test, right? So the fact that you have to, I think the common ground is everybody has to realize they might have to do something for the good of the team. But having said that, that's football. I mean, there's no other sport that gives you that option like this. In other words, you got to do something every day that sets your personal agenda aside and is for the good of the team. And I think that's why we're seeing the vaccine rates go up around the league now. I mean, we see now where there's half a dozen teams that are in the 90 percentile. I just think once the information is out there and once the players, really it's the players, realize what's at stake, it's kind of a no-brainer. You're playing the odds, you're playing the what's best for the team role that they're all used to playing their whole lives. So I do think there's a process though, Neil, and you brought it up. You've got to hear the player side of it for sure. But as a GM, you always hear that. You always have an open door, at least you should have, to listening to what your players say. I mean, I spent every day of my time behind, an NFL facility really listening to people. That's really what a GM does, is you got to listen. Everybody thinks that, these GMs now would just sit in a room and pick players. That's the furthest thing from the truth. You are a manager of people. You have to communicate with all sides all the time. There's days now when I remember when I got home, I said, what did I accomplish? I didn't do a thing. Well, you know what? I was communicating with people all day long, and it may be frustrating after 10 or 12 hours, but that's the job of being the boss, and that's the job of being the leader.
I think more so than ever, I think your rank and file NFL fan knows who the GM of his favorite team is. He may know the GMs of half the teams in the league. I mean, you have become kind of the face of the franchise in that way. Maybe not as much as the starting quarterback or the head coach, but certainly you're part of that whole dynamic anyway.
Right.
Speaking of communicating, speaking of having that relationship with the players on the team, we saw the news broke, I think, this week that Saints wide receiver Michael Thomas will not be with the team to start the season because he had kind of late ankle surgery. Everyone who's a Who-Dat knows how much of the season he lost last year. To see this linger into the 2021 season is pretty frustrating. When you were running the team, did you have any kind of a protocol about, hey, listen, you had to get your surgery done at a certain time? You had to, if you were given an instruction about what to do, again, ultimately it's a player's decision, but how did you work that out? And how did were there any kind of firewalls against something like this happening with the team that you ran?
Well, I think it's a great question, and it is a very vital part of being a GM and of running a franchise. And I'll say this, it was the first thing I thought of when I read and heard about the Michael Thomas thing. The first thing that came to my mind was, why now? Why are we waiting now to do this? And that wasn't a reflection necessarily of him, but just of the whole process. And I know Mickey and Sean had to be involved in this because, hey, Mickey, as you know, was my assistant for years. And one of my first meetings is always when one season ends, I want to sit down with the medical people first and foremost and assess our whole roster and come up with pros and cons and a plan for each guy, because injuries are a giant factor with everybody on your team, and they're with a giant factor with team building itself. So we would sit down with the doctors and the trainers and exactly map out how, let's just say, how we're going to deal with Michael Thomas and how he's going to have, maybe once a second opinion or this and that, but we would map it all out on a calendar so things like this didn't happen. And then I would bring the player in and we would go through it all with him. So we all were on the same page, so we didn't get hit with something like this out of left field a week before camp starts. Although we know he had his surgery in June, it's still going to dig into now his season. So yeah, it is a major part of what you do. And I don't know that to answer your question, I don't think there's a steadfast rule. Every situation is its own, right? It's all different. It's all unique. Every player is going to react different to the information he's getting from his doctors, from our doctors. It's just another, hey, part of being a GM is being an arbitrator, right? You just have to listen and take in all sides and come up with some, middle ground. That's what it's really all about, middle ground. I don't care if you're signing a player or you're drafting a player. It's all about middle ground. You and I may differ on our evaluations of a player. We've talked about this before, but the truth is probably in the middle. And when you're assessing medical information player by player, the truth might be in the middle, but you've got to gather all the information and come up with a plan. And I think that's the big thing is you do have to have a plan. Now you're going to have changes. You've got to be flexible. Maybe there's some things that happen that they said, well, we're going to go 10 weeks without surgery on Michael. See if this does it. Well, you're bumping up against the following year if you wait too long. And I think this one probably just got away from him a little bit. I don't think this was something Michael went out and did on his own, although we've had players in the past do that, where they'll just come in and say, hey, I had surgery last week. And I'm thinking, whoa, what? You had surgery? So there's all kinds of things that enter into this. But hey, it's part of being the leader of the ship. And I know Mickey and Sean are dealing with it now. And it's a tough situation, especially a team already thin on paper like theirs.
Yeah, they really are. They really are. All right, so let's turn to the game on the field and kind of work the draft in a little bit. I think everyone on the show is an enthusiast of the NFL draft. I know that I am. There are 5 quarterbacks taken this year. I think everybody knows that, anyone who watches the game. Randy, in your opinion, which one will have the best career long-term, and which one has the best chance for early success?
Well, it's not an exact science, as we know, but when you talk about drafting quarterbacks, especially those high, and I've said this, and I think you and I even talked about it, it's an organizational failure or success. That's really what it is. So you can pencil out the pros and cons of each of these guys, but at the same time, they're all going to be evaluated on the situation they've come into, the offense that they're in, the talent level around them in their own locker room. That has so much to do with it. I still think Trevor Lawrence is the best player and has the best upside of all of them. And I would have picked him first. I think Zach Wilson probably falls in the next category. He could be really special. But I think to answer your question, who is set up for success the best, I might pick Mac Jones, and he would have been the fifth guy on my list too. But he's at a spot where he's got McDaniels, a seasoned offensive coordinator. He's got Bill Belichick. He's got a proven system. And what I think is more important than anything, they really upgraded their talent this year, really upgraded it. They took advantage of a talent pool that, in my opinion, was the best ever to be on the street in the history of the league because of the cap ramifications and people getting released around the league. So Bill jumped in and he did a great job putting together really a rebuild in a matter of several weeks. So I think Mac, even though he may have the least skills of all five of these guys, I go back to the organizational failure or success, and I think he's set up the best, at least as we sit here right now. And he may not even win the job. It may not, but he's going to, if the Patriots are going to be good this year, it's going to be for one reason, because they've upped their passing game to at least average level. They were way below average last year passing the football for NFL standards. And I think Matt gives them a chance to advance that, which in turn, I think makes them a viable candidate in the AFC East.
It's a fascinating story, that whole story. I mean, we could talk about Cam Newton probably for an hour.
Yeah.
You talk about them signing two tight ends for an hour. I mean, just so many interesting choices that the Belichick kind of team made over there. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about quarterbacks, Randy. There are four prominent NFL quarterbacks, Brady, Watson, Rodgers, and Wilson, who have expressed the desire to have more of a say in personnel matters over the last couple years. If you were a GM today, Randy, how would you approach this? And would you allow that? I mean, can that be part of a successful organization?
Well, I think, again, we're going back to being a mediator, right? I think your door's always got to be open. I think you have to hear your best players. I always made it a point to be at practice every day. It wasn't to watch or to evaluate necessarily what was going on the practice field. I kind of wanted to be in the loop with my best players. So I would kind of attend practice and be around just to kind of hear from an earshot away what they think, what they are doing. You know, if they're questioning this or that. Players know ball. That's what they really know. And to that end, I think your best players are some that you should really listen to. That's not to say you should do what they want to do all the time. They just don't have a big enough perspective to make a myopic decision like in personnel of what we're going to do as it, relates to filling a receiver spot or a defensive lineman spot. Now, if they want to come in at 6 a.m. and sit down with us and roll out film for 3 or 4 weeks in a row and get a line on all 50 guys we're considering, great. I'll gladly take their input. Most don't want to do that, right? I don't think we're going to have that, extra set of eyes on the tape like I think we all as scouts and administrators do, at least the football side does. So I think you've got to listen to them. You've got to hear them out. I think we're seeing that obviously with Aaron Rodgers now. In Green Bay when he reports, and now the rumors are that they're going to go get Randall Cobb from the Texans. That I think that is a prime example of it. And this is nothing against Randall Cobb. Mm-hmm. They're not getting Randall Cobb of 5 or 6 years ago. Mm-hmm. They're getting a completely different player. And maybe that's what Aaron's perspective is a little warped because he thinks they're getting the Randall Cobb that left there, several years ago. So that's a prime example of he may be top on Aaron's list, but I don't know if Aaron knows the whole list and what's transpired. So there's, each of us have our own jobs to do, right? I'm going to stay in my lane for the most part. And I think players in general will stay in their lanes, but you definitely have to listen to them and reason with them. And if at the end of the day, they have a good idea, I'm all for it. I think it's great if they have some ideas because I think discussion merits that. Any discussion is good for decision-making as a whole in the process.
No doubt about it. Okay. All right. So Randy, last question, man. You've been around the game for ages. You've seen players, you've worked with players, scouts, officials, owners, everyone around it. Who's one man, player, coach, owner, or executive who's not in the Hall of Fame, but in your opinion should be?
Well, I think there's a couple, and again, I'm going to be a little partial because I've been lucky. I've been around some great coaches and had offices next to all the way from Chuck Knox to Nick Saban and everybody in between, right?
Right.
But when you talk about a coach that I think is deserving of it, I'm going to go with Mike Holmgren. I think Mike is one of the best that has been around. He took 2 franchises, 2 Super Bowls. He had the best knack of any coach I've been with in my 35 years for kicking him in the ass, and then 5 minutes later, they're hugging him. Mm-hmm. That's like a teacher. That's like a math teacher in high school, right? You've got to have that mentality. He is a great teacher. I thought I'll tell you another name that I think of, and this will turn some probably noses up in some NFL front offices, but a guy like Tom Condon, which sounds crazy, but for what he's done for the game as a contributor, he was Gene Upshaw's right-hand man for years. He's represented iconic players throughout the years in this game. He's represented the Referees Association forever. He's just had a great input in all the parts that make up professional football. For one thing, he was a player himself. So a guy like that as a contributor, this guy's contributed as much to the game as anybody, in my opinion. And I never hear his name brought up in any parts about being a Hall of Fame. Really, I guess it's an administrator, it's a contributor, it's for all of those things. So those 2 names come to my mind. I think Holmgren will get in. I think he deserves to be in. And I think a guy like Tom Condon is worth considering, just for everything he's done for the game.
Yeah, I think people forget that Condon had an NFL playing career of his own. He was a guy who was in the trenches and had a legacy at Boston College. And you're right. I mean, a number of contributions, and probably as synonymous a name with what we think of as the modern NFL agent as anyone out there. And his son continues his legacy. Yeah,
Tom's had contributions at the highest level too. Right. He was involved in so many CBA negotiations, so many referee negotiations with the league, and like you say, all the players that he's represented over the years, and coaches for that matter. I just think he encompasses the whole professional sport.
I agree. And with Holmgren, I wonder if his legacy is muddied a bit just from his work with the Browns. He wasn't able to kind of pull him out of that spiral that the franchise was in back then, but there are a lot of people who tried and didn't quite succeed there.
We saw Tom Flores get in the Hall of Fame this year as a coach, and he ended up in Seattle with 3-4 miserable years as an administrator too. So we all learned to forget the important things. That's for sure.
Isn't that the truth? Well, Randy, thanks so much for being on. You're an awesome, always a great guest, and I can't thank you enough for being part of the Best Player Available podcast, for being part of today, but also for everything you do for people in the game and for your awesome consulting service, your advising service. Again, I just want to plug Randy's blog. It's tremendous. He sends it out. If you subscribe, he sends it out to you. He's talking about the topics that everyone has on their mind and giving you a perspective that you just don't get out there. And if you're missing his writing, then you're really missing out. Randy, thanks again, man. And also, as a Houdat, thanks so much for bringing us to the playoffs for the first time ever. It's something I'll never forget, man.
Thanks for having me on, Neil. I think back of my New Orleans days. It was the best time of my professional life. So I'm right there with you. That was a lot of fun.
Awesome. All right. Have a great day, man. Thanks so much again, Randy. All right. So I think we've resolved our technical difficulties with Bo Marchionte. He's back. Smiling, Bo. And good to have you, man. Bo, who is our next guest, my brother?
Our next guest, our final guest of day 3 of our show is Jason Montanez. He is an impressive man. It's not just because he's a former fullback for the University of Buffalo. He's also a 2-time author. He's the owner of his own consulting firm, Catapult Leadership. It's also because he's an expert in human character, how to motivate. He's also able to how to identify high-performing people, how to work the lead and the patience, the positivity when times are tough. But it's a pleasure to bring Jason on to the program and learn a little bit more about his expertise and what he brings to the table.
Jason,
Whoa.
Good morning, sir.
Whoa, good morning. Good morning. That was quite the introduction. Thanks, Bo. I appreciate it. Hey, Neil, how you doing?
For everyone who was at the 2019 NFL Personnel Symposium in Nashville, you may remember Jason. He was the guy that woke everybody up after I put him to sleep after I spoke. I mean, Jason got everyone up standing, moving around, got their blood pumping, got them, reminded them why they love football. Thanks for joining us today, Jason. Glad to have you, buddy.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me, Neil.
All right, so Jason, we're going to talk about your area of expertise, which is people and character and how to perform at your very best. Jason, what are some of the mistakes people most often make when they're interviewing for a job, and how do they avoid them?
Well, I think the most common mistake that people make is they don't prepare enough, right? They don't really get to know the job in which they're going for. I think you have to put in a substantial amount of research to really get to know the job, get to know the who you're interviewing with, who the hiring manager is, and really get a sense of what the job entails that you're interviewing for. You know, what kind of vision do you have? You know, you have to be able to clearly articulate what kind of vision, how you see yourself in this role, and ensure that the hiring managers can actually see you in this role while you're interviewing. Another thing that I can tell you is that energy, right? You have to bring a certain amount of energy. You have to be lively. You have to smile. Oftentimes we hear that 80% of 80% or more of communication is nonverbal, right? So as the interviewer is speaking, it's imperative that your body language is up to bar. It's imperative that you're smiling. You bring great energy. And those are some of the things that I think people really need to consider and focus on. And how do you avoid them? How do you avoid them? You have a wealth. Never in this world have we had access to the amount of information that we have nowadays, whether it's via LinkedIn, via Google. You can literally find whatever you need to find about the person, about the job, about whatever the job entails, or specific examples of what other people have been in those jobs. So it's all up to you it's all up to you from a preparation standpoint, and from a research standpoint, and from an energy standpoint. You got to bring those.
Absolutely right.
Jason,
Yes.
I mean, when you're conducting these interviews, I mean, is there one trait that's more important than all the others that you seek out and try to identify first?
Well, I want to, first of all, I want to see if I like the person, right? And you know, that nobody's going to hire you if they don't like you. All right. That's one thing that, you know, we have to consider. We have to make sure that we understand. You have to smile. You have to have energy. You have to have passion. I need to know that you're passionate about the role in which you're applying, right? So if it's a football role, I need to know that you're passionate about football. I need to know that you're passionate about people. I need to know that you're passionate about collaborating, and it's we instead of I, right? And partnership. So these are the things that I'm looking for, and the characteristics that stand out to me most whenever I'm conducting interviews.
Okay. We've talked about the fact that you're not just up here talking about football in the theoretical sense. You played fullback at Buffalo. You've been in coaching as well. You've been out on the field many times. You've sweated alongside your brothers in the game. What lesson did you learn during your college playing days that you still find yourself applying to your professional or personal life, Jason? I mean, we all learn lessons out on the field, but what sticks out most to you that really has application now?
Well, I can tell you, the game of football is the game of life. And what I learned while playing football, what stands out to me and what has stuck with me is punctuality, being on time. You know, when I was in college, my coach used to lock the door 5 minutes before meeting time. So if we weren't in our seats and ready to go 5 minutes before our meeting started, we would get locked out. And if we got locked out of a meeting, you know, the next morning you're going to be up at 5 a.m. running the stadium stairs, right? Another thing is sudden change, right? Oftentimes in life, we have sudden change. There's things that we do have control over and things that we don't have control over. That ability to weather the storm, so to speak, when things happen that you have zero control over, and kind of weather the storm. I remember going into hostile environments playing, right? One environment I can tell you, probably the best environment that I've ever played in was playing at West Point, playing at Army. And it happened to be the same year as 9/11, and security was off the chain, and Mikey Stadium was off the chain, rocking. The cadets were rocking in there. And going into a hostile environment like that, we had to really weather that storm and really just focus on what we could control, our energy, our effort. We ended up winning that game. And another thing is, the ability to pivot, right? So when things happen that we have zero control over, having that ability to pivot and not really get stuck in the weeds too long, right? Yes, of course, you talk about quarterbacks having short-term memory, right? You throw a pick, you can't dwell on it, man. You got to get out the next series because we're dependent on you, right? So forget about it. Yeah, you're angry or whatever in the moment, but forget about it. Let's get back to the drawing board. We have a game to win. So those are the things that really stick out, and I apply nowadays in my life.
Jason, in terms of a job in football and outside of the realm of the football world, I mean, what differences are involved in a football job to a non-football job?
Well, I think when you have a football job, in my opinion, there's a genuine love for the game and the people. So I've had the ability to work in corporate America as well as own my own leadership consulting firm. I can tell you that in corporate America, sure, you may love the people that you're with, you may enjoy the product or service that you're selling, or you're catering to the environment, the public, but I don't know if you love it the way you love the game of football, because it's so much. It's so much more than a game. The people, the relationships. Bo, I can tell you, I still talk to coaches 20 years later. I have coaches all throughout the NCAA at various, levels, Division I, from Notre Dame to, University of Central Florida. I can name them all. I probably have a relationship with 50% of the colleges out there. I have a coach there, right? Then, 20 years later, I'll give you a quick story. So when I was at the University of Buffalo, Matt Rule was our defensive line coach. As a matter of fact, my first year there, Matt Rule was running the defensive scout team. Okay. Fast forward 18 years later, Matt Rule gets the job at Baylor. I contact Matt. I say, hey, man, congratulations. Matter of fact, I went up there on a junior day with one of my players that I trained, and we reunited and everything like that. I opened up Baylor's camp in 2016. I was the first speaker to open up the camp up in Baylor University, right? So when you talk about the game of football, you're talking about 20 years. A couple of weeks ago, I went up to speak to University of Buffalo football team. They have a phenomenal new coach in Maurice Linquist right now. He doesn't know me from anywhere, but he allowed me to speak to the team after 20 years, not being there. So when you talk about football and other jobs or corporate jobs, it's the genuine love, the people, the passion. I can go on and on about football.
Mm-hmm.
Well said.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Yeah, it is. It's different. It's just different. All right. So, Jason, last question, man. When you're leaving football, whether it's the last time walking off the field in your shoulder pads, or if you're ending a career in scouting or coaching, it's not easy. There's no substitute for it. It's just different. How does one come to grips with leaving any of your life's passions? If it's football, if it's something else. I mean, how do you deal with that when it's been such a big part of your life for so long?
Neil, that's a great question. And first, I really feel that you have to have a belief in a higher power. I really feel that you have to be grounded with a belief in a higher power, whatever that higher power is that you believe in. And secondly, you have to remember that football and playing football is what you did. It's what you do. It's not who you are. And when you come to grips with that, and this was very, very hard for me, because I don't know if I ever told you this story, Neil, but I tore my hamstring the night before my pro day. And I was in the best shape of my life. You know, I was going into the 2003 draft as a fullback, had private workouts, you know, with the Steelers as well as the Bills. And unfortunately, I didn't get a shot because my hamstring didn't heal up. And coming from the mid-major like Buffalo, back then, Buffalo wasn't the Buffalo that we see, the top 25 team that we see now. So it was different, you know, back then. So I had to come with grips with football was not who I was. It's something that I did. It's something that I was very passionate about. And the beautiful thing about it is I was able to get my education. So football afforded me the opportunity to get my, education, scholarship, etc. And I think that's the main thing. You can't football, while, football is a big part of life, it's not your whole life, right? There's gonna be a point, unless you're a coach or, like a scout or something like that, somebody else is going to tell you when your playing day's over. Not many people get to choose, farewell tours. This is my last year.
Yeah, not in this game, man. Not at all.
Yep.
All right. So, Jason, we've got you. I know we've got you for about another minute. Tell us about Catapult. Tell us about how it started. Tell us about when you decided this is something you really wanted to pursue.
Yeah, so Catapult Leadership Group is my consulting firm. It's launching the leader within you. I believe that everybody is a leader. Everybody has the ability to influence. Leadership is not based on scale. Even if you influence one person, you're a leader. And I also believe that you can lead people in the right and wrong directions. So the Catapult Leadership Group really focuses on leadership, sales, and customer care. I call it the common denominator of a successful business as well as a successful life. So, but just by focusing on those three things, the ability to influence, the ability to sell, and the ability to really care and retain your customers, I firmly believe if we just focus on those three things, that you'll be very successful. So, very passionate about that, very passionate about people. I'm very passionate about human capital, and I believe that great things can be done and have been done by great people. So that's a quick, 1 minute overview of the Catapult Leadership Group.
You can find Jason at catapultleadership.com. If you've got an organization or a group that needs to be motivated, needs to hear about character and the value of leadership, hit him up. He's also got 2 great books on Amazon. Jason, thanks so much for joining us today, buddy. We really appreciate you sharing some wisdom with us.
Yeah.
Nope, no problem. Neil, Bo, nice to meet you. Neil,
Jason, thank you. Yeah, yes, great sir. Job, Jason. Great. Excellent.
Have a blessed day, buddy. All right. We got through another one, bro. All right. My internet's still up. My power's still running. So I guess Rick is still okay with us finishing this show, man. We made it through 3. More than halfway through the week. Can you believe we made it?
Yeah. Yeah, we weathered the storm today. On my end, everything froze up on me. So I had I tried to screenshot what was going on and taking photos of the computer and everything. And it wasn't, but we're going to be able to finish strong and our 3 guests on. And when Randy Mueller came on, I wanted to kind of hype him up, saying, who is? I mean, we have a GM and executive of the year on the show on the state of football. I mean, these aren't just petty guests. I mean, we got some big time ballers coming on the program. I just really wanted to give him the due that he's, deserved. And, obviously you did a great job with the interview, and he, I mean, Randy's always been so kind to you, and, seeing him speak at your, symposiums and stuff. But that was great. And the insight, I mean, for me personally, Neil, with GMs, the NFL executives, I mean, agents, guys like Jason as well, people in the industry, along with yourself, such great insight. State of football, this has been a fabulous week so far.
I agree. It's been a lot of fun. In retrospect, Bo, maybe Rick did kind of pull the plug. Maybe we know now why you disappeared there for a minute. I don't know. I haven't asked Rick, and I mean, hey, I don't know if he's even got that kind of power, but it's food for thought anyway. Who we got tomorrow?
Well, before we get to that, I am not going to lie. As we keep talking about Rick pulling the plug, I maybe Friday, I want to tempt fate, and I want to see what we actually have to do to get this thing pulled. No, I wouldn't do that. But I just like to see, like, what is the level? Like, where's the limit? I want to push that limit. I won't, Rick. I love you. He's, I owe everything to Rick. But with that said, another day, Thursday. I can't believe this week's almost wrapping up. We're hump day. We're past that day. Tomorrow we have prospective agent Don Williams on the program. We have Noel Montanez from Van Dance Capital Advisors, and then we have former NFL agent executive Mike Sullivan, and that's going to do our Thursday show, and then we're off to Friday. But Sam, fabulous job. Neil, you guys make this so easy, and it's been such a fun part to be part of this process.
Yeah, Sam is certainly the unsung hero of the state of football. That has certainly been true this week.
Yeah.
So many things behind the scenes, and all while juggling a baby, I might add. Okay, there's a twin shot with Ed, one of my favorite financial advisors out there, who's based in Connecticut. Ed's another kind of part of the traveling crew. But yeah, I don't think we even meant to do that, but I think it just happened.
No, we didn't mean it. That's the sad part, is we didn't mean to do it. I think, it would have been worse, if we would have planned it, it's not so bad, but just look at us. We look like,
I mean, I wear whatever my wife puts out for me. So I have to plead, ignorance there. I didn't know, but it was kind of funny how it worked out, man. That was a lot of fun night. That was a great night. Season 2 debuts Monday with Rick. Rick is back, kicking us out of here, cleaning up our messes on Monday. So that's season 2 of the State of Football, getting ready to kick off. Remember, we're 8 days away from the NFL agent exam. If you are taking the exam, don't forget about our exam prep materials. We got the best stuff out there. We're the industry standard. We will help you. We'll give you 25-point better percentage of passing the exam than you would otherwise. Really proud of what we provide and happy to work with you. We want you to win. We want to win too. We believe in the win-win here. Wednesday's over. Thursday's ahead. Thanks so much for joining us today. Looking forward to joining you again tomorrow. It's going to be a lot of fun, but we'll see you tomorrow, buddy.
Yep. Have a great week, guys.
You can't become an agent without passing the exam. We can help. We introduced our first practice test in 2012. Since then, we've added a study guide and a second exam, and we've helped hundreds pass a test that 55% fail. Our clients succeed at a rate 25% higher than others. For the cost of a plane ticket, you can buy our guide and take both our exams multiple times. Check us out.